Now, the first consideration with respect to our anti-cancer diet that we're looking at here, it's got to be plant-based. 5 to 9 servings. The Canadian food charter, I believe it's up to 8 to 10 servings is what they're recommending now. This 5 to 9 is based on both Dr. Schreiber's book as well as Dr. Donald Abrams' suggestion. Uh, I definitely think you can't go wrong pushing towards that range. With our plants, we're getting anti-inflammatory effects, antioxidants. They're going to detoxification and actually disrupt or potentially disrupt cancer cells' life cycles, so help to disrupt their ability to grow at the rate they do and progress at the rate they do. And in our society, we really like to find out what are the helpful phytochemicals and the helpful components of a plant. We like to amplify it and make a drug or supplement out of it. And in certain instances, that definitely makes sense. But it's really important to, or the way I see it is nature has done a wonderful job of putting together these fruits and these veggies and these plants in a way that's complementary, where the combination of everything that's found within that particular food product works synergistically and sort of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They're sort of helping each other out, and it works to bring the best in it. So as much as possible, I'd personally recommend whole foods. And when necessary, it's worth looking into a supplement, but that's something that I'd encourage you to speak to a naturopath about if that's something you're interested in. So sticking to plants for the next few slides, on the top of the list of almost every person's list are the cruciferous veggies. Your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, even kale and arugula. These found to reduce the risk of various cancers. What I want to stress is a couple things. One, it's got to be crushed or chewed well to actually bring out the healthy, helpful properties. And I often get asked, can I cook it? There's a lot of mixed reviews. The general consensus that I'll share with you is that raw is great. Stir frying or steaming lightly is okay. Cooking doesn't always destroy all of the enzymes, but it may decrease activity of them. And boiling it can do some damage, especially with broccoli. Dr. David Servan Schreiber says, do not boil broccoli. It completely strips it. So that's something to pay attention to. And while at the talk, instead of me trying to give recipes, I've obviously referenced the book. I think The Cancer Fighting Kitchen is fantastic. I was asking the audience members if they had any recommendations or any recipes, and a couple cool ones, specific kale, because that's what I highlighted yesterday. Kale chips. So very simple. You get the kale, you break it up into smaller pieces, and you can salt it. Some people like to have it sweet, and you're basically just drizzling some olive oil, and you can bake it at 350. I'd suggest looking up the recipe. I've had them. They're fantastic. Very easy, and kale is super, super, super good for you. It's really, really good. And what else? Oh yeah, so there was a salad. Very nice salad. You can wilt the kale just lightly, or some people actually like having it raw. And you can julienne or cut up some carrots, cut up some beets, and just have a balsamic vinaigrette. Fantastic and really, really simple way to get kale into your diet, which is a powerhouse food, and also, with respect to today's topic, helps to reduce the risk of various cancers. I included soy as well in this list, and the reason I included this is there is a debate and there is question when it comes to soy, and I asked, again, several people in the audience what they thought, and it was totally mixed. So first and foremost, it's interesting to note that Asians who typically have a richer soy, or a diet richer in soy, when they switch to the traditional North American diet, their cancer risk rises. And I draw your attention to what we looked at with migrant populations and how they come to North America and adopt the higher rates of colorectal cancer here. Whether that has to do specifically with soy or not, I'm not going to make that claim, but it's interesting to look at the value of soy. And according to Dr. Donald Abrams, it's okay to have tofu, edamame, and tempeh because these are not processed. The issue is with these processed soy items, such as a soy isolate protein, the meat alternatives, which are very popular now and actually came up a lot in the presentation. People were asking about that. I don't know exactly what it is about having processed soy that causes the issue. My guess is that it has to do with um, the fact that it may not be protective to the same degree as an unprocessed soy is. And the way to think about it is soy has something called phytoestrogens in it. And imagine phytoestrogen as a little ball, right? It's floating around in your system. And there are estrogen receptors throughout your body. And this little ball goes in and fits into this estrogen receptor just as your natural hormone estrogen would. And if this phytoestrogen ball goes in and gets into this receptor, it doesn't allow for your estrogen to do that. So what I'm getting at here is this presence of phytoestrogens in the body seem to reduce the risk of certain cancers that are estrogen dependent, meaning the longer your body is exposed to estrogen, there's an increased rate or risk of these cancers. You can see here breast cancer is what I highlighted. So that's what the benefit of soy appears to be, the fact that it blocks this estrogen and reduces your risk of an estrogen dependent cancer. But I would definitely suggest speaking to a naturopath if you are someone that is either vegetarian or does have a lot of or soy-based meat alternatives. But we're gonna give the green light to tofu, edamame, and tempeh. Tomatoes. I don't think this is news to anyone. I think we're well aware that tomatoes have some really solid cancer-fighting properties. It's the lycopene that we find in them that really helps, and this seems to help with cancer in specific. What I want to emphasize here is that based on the lecture by Dr. Donald Abrams, it needs to not only be cooked, but also cooked in oil. So or in contrast to broccoli, where we said, you know what, let's look at taking it in raw, with the tomatoes, to get this lycopene, we have to cook it. He mentions cooking it in olive oil. I'll recommend going with something like grapeseed oil, only because olive oil is very unstable and susceptible to heat. When we do cook with it, it disrupts its molecular composition and we lose the benefits, and it actually promotes free radicals. It promotes stress within the body that we're trying to mitigate and avoid by using some of these healthier oils. So my recommendation, serving olive oil cold, meaning just at the end after you've cooked, you can serve it that way. And grapeseed oil is a little bit more stable. It has a higher smoking, so that would be a better option to cook with. And really cool, so lycopene is also found in watermelon. I had no idea. I love watermelon, and given that we're entering the summer, and it's been a very warm spring, at least you know you're getting some of that goodness in the watermelon, and you don't need to worry about cooking the watermelon. Just as an FYI, there are a lot of lycopene supplements out there. The majority of clinical trials that look at the effect of lycopene are actually using whole tomatoes, and most often, or not, I shouldn't say most often, but in many instances, using tomato paste, because that's a cheap way to get this goodness into people's systems for studies that are on a tight budget. So although there may be value to the supplements, that would be something worth bringing up to your naturopath, but I think it's noteworthy that the majority of these, or many of these studies, just tomato paste. But remember, we've got to cook it. Orange and yellow veggies, I love them. These are squash or sweet potatoes, carrots, etc. These guys are packed with carotenoids, which are precursors to vitamin A. I'm not going to get into this too much, and the only reason I brought this up in this presentation is that there are studies. Dr. Donald Abrams mentioned that there are 4 large studies that looked at vitamin A supplementation in smokers. And when vitamin A is supplemented in a smoker, that can increase the risk of developing lung cancer. So already smokers are at a at an increased risk of developing the disease, but vitamin A supplementation can actually progress them to that at a faster rate. And it's just important to know that many multivitamins contain vitamin A in it. I'm not saying stop taking multivitamins, but if you are a smoker, I would highly, or if you know a smoker, I'd highly recommend speaking to your naturopath if you do take a multivitamin and that's something that you want to continue taking, because there obviously is value in taking that. But that's a big point. A lot of people aren't aware of that, and it's that's a point that we need to educate ourselves on. Mushrooms. So these aren't technically plants. I mean, they're in their own family or class of fungi. Shiitake, maitake, reishi, all fantastic mushrooms. A lot of research coming out on these guys. And the reason I bring this up in today's talk is because we love having raw mushrooms, particularly the white button mushrooms, on our salads and things like that, but we need to cook them. Um, there are cancer-causing compounds found in white buttons and other mushrooms, and unless we cook them, we are susceptible to them. So that's something that's important. Definitely cook your mushrooms. You know, keep them in warm dishes, or in them in dishes that are cooked and will be served warm. So that's something to be aware of. Mushrooms are great because not only are they antioxidants, they're actually immune stimulating. So some work differently than others, and there are certain interactions that you want to be aware of. So if you're looking especially to something like a reishi, same deal. I'd recommend talking to your ND just so that you're educated and informed and can make the right decision on with that. When it comes to fruits, heavily pigmented is what we're looking for. These deep, dark, nice, rich colored fruits. Most people were aware of when I asked for examples. Everyone said blueberries. They are definitely powerhouse antioxidants. They're in many, many anti-cancer nutrition-oriented books. They are really strong antioxidants, and the reason I brought them up, knowing that people are already aware of it, is they're not in season year-round, especially if we're going Ontario Farm Fresh. Uh, the point I want to raise is that if you are going to have frozen out of season, you're only losing about 10% potency, so that's not bad. There are some farms that sell frozen organic blueberries through the year because berries do tend to soak up a lot of toxins. But if you can't, you know what, through the winter months, if you just go to the grocery store and get those packaged frozen blueberries, you know what, you're doing okay, and that's it's better than nothing because you are getting really solid amounts of antioxidants with those blueberries. And just as an extra point of interest, stone fruits, so referring to things like plums and nectarines and peaches, they seem to be coming up as massive antioxidant cancer-fighting fruits recently. So I think that's worth looking into too because they're fantastic. We get great selection in the summer, and I'm curious to see where that goes with the research on those stone fruits. That'll be cool to see. Herbs and spices. I had no idea basil was such a badass. Basil is amazing. It's a digestive aid, it's anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial, it's an NF-kappa beta regulator. So NF-kappa beta, just to simplify it, is a switch. Certain foods, certain pathways will switch it on. Certain foods, activities, pathways will switch it off. And having it switched on is related to cancer progression. And we'll just keep it in a simplified term, or a simplified, yeah, in simplified terms that way. And basil is an NF-kappa beta regulator on top of all of the other amazing things that it does. So I wasn't originally going to include it, but in the Cancer Fighting Kitchen Kat's cookbook, she highlighted basil, and I had no idea how amazing it is. So basil gets some kudos here and made the cut.